This is Split Fire Radio coming to you with Jacob and Sherman. Just a few quick shout outs. Hello to everybody out there who's new to the group that decided to join, or anybody that's new to the podcast that decided to pick this one up. Shout out to Wesley of Stiff Neck Studios, Mage's Sanctum for sure for letting us play there, and to Wyatt of Jack of Clubs Painting. He does his own Twitch channel on there, Jack of Clubs, little underscore under each, in between each word. Super easy to find. Great channel if you ever want to watch some cool painting tutorials. But we'll go ahead and jump into this. If you've listened to the last two, you know who I am. Or if you've seen me at the shop, you know who I am. I am Jacob. I play Slanesh currently, and that's about it. I'm a one-trick pony right now, and it's starting to depress me. And I'll go into that later. But anyway, this one is about Sherman, and Sherman's been a part of our group for quite a while now, I want to say it was like 2 years. Yeah, it said 2 years. Sound nice. That's pretty much right when I jumped on, and Eric jumped on, and just everybody else just dogpiled. So this is Sherman.
Hey, yeah, I'm Sherman. I try to be at the shop as much as possible. I'm definitely open to play anytime if you guys want to hit me up.
And what do you play, Sherman?
I play predominantly Necrons. I do own a small Space Marine force that for my own chapter I was trying to create. I haven't been able to do much more with that though.
Why though? That was such a beautiful force too.
It's like I was kind of waiting on the codex to see how like the stratagems and chapter tactics and all this sort of stuff. So I was just trying to develop how narratively I can create rules for my own chapter tactics that are not broken. And then on top of that, I also own at the very end of 7th before the announcement, I also picked up a Tempestus force, and then all of a sudden that got good really quick.
Tempestus?
Yeah, I have
really?
I have almost 500 points of Tempestus.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was just random. Like, let me try to do Tempestus because like screw it, I might as well do this because what happened was we were starting to play the Dark Heresy 2nd edition from Fantasy Flight, and when that we decided to get models for our own characters, whatever. And I was playing a Stormtrooper, and so we decided to go get me my roommate got me a Tempestus model, and I was like, well, since you started on this, I might as well just like I got a couple of start collecting boxes, you know.
Oh my God, dude.
And then shout out to Jeff Nagy for getting those wheels from Blood and Skulls, like that make those Tempestus Torox Prime kits look so much better.
Jeff Nagy is like the group's just if you need your like that other crack dealer, not just GW. If you need like that competitor that keeps those crack values down, go to Jeff Nagy. He knows some people, he knows some stuff to get you some good bits for sure. Because I know he got Steve, our Night Lords player, fuck ton of backpacks for just throwing them on Chaos Space Marines just to make some jump pack guys, and that was super fucking cool. But so you were saying you've been here for about 2 years. How did you find the shop? How did you find the group?
Let's see. Finding the shop, I randomly just came over. I was told about there's this store by Mages. I had a friend who actually played there for Smash Bros. He never played 40K, so I decided to randomly go there and visit. And that's when I got in touch with the group.
Who did you first get in touch with?
Let's see.
Scott?
I think
was it Scott?
I think it was you, honestly, because it was because I showed up one time without an army and I saw you guys playing. And I was just like, I didn't know the group dynamic. I didn't know I'm also. I never really played against anybody other than my friends, since at that point, I only started playing around in 2014, at the beginning of 2014. So at the very tail end of like 6th edition, and then it was just my friend and I. We split a Dark Vengeance box, and like most others, and started playing. I played Chaos for a little while there because I had to make sure like my friend Luke Terry, he kept interested. So I was like, okay. He wants to play Dark Angels, I'll play. He wants to be Imperium, I'll play Chaos. And that book was not the strongest of books, to say the least. So I got up to like 3,000 points of 6th edition on Chaos, but
Holy shit.
it wasn't a cohesive enough force to really like make me feel like I could do anything on the table.
Yeah.
So just random boxes here and there, and just didn't.
That was about the same time I jumped on board and did Blood Angels, and that was a weird time to get into the hobby. You see, when you first got into the hobby, did you get that same kind of gripe from like the community that you were in, or no? You were just paying your buddy, so you didn't get any of that.
Yeah, like
That's so weird. We had Eric and we had Chuck on, and a lot of these people that are so in love with the hobby, like the way you are just people that like, yeah, you just had this little incubator when you first started the hobby, and you were just like, this is my hobby, and it is mine, and it is beautiful, and it is like you guys actually cultivated, I can see, like some really good like learning experiences early on. Like I feel like I didn't get that, and I'm a little bit envious of you guys. Oh. That's nice to be able to have that.
Yeah, well, playing Chaos for that short period of time, it definitely I just did not feel like I could like stand up towards the Imperial players, even though I was just they didn't have a lot, but still it hurt whatever they did have.
So you're saying you had that very quintessential Chaos salt for a short while.
For definitely a short while there. Okay. But I always wanted a Space Marine force in the first place. That's my first intro to anything 40K was playing Dawn of War.
Oh yeah.
So
yes.
So therefore, like still hands down, probably my favorite actual chapter is still the Blood Ravens.
God, dude, yeah. Why did you? Is that always in the back of your head too, where you're like
with these Primaris Marines right now, like they look so like every photo of them in like Blood Ravens colors, I'm like, that looks so good.
Oh man, I got the same itch when I saw the Blood Ravens Psyker that came to the Death Watch too, and I was like,
that one pissed me off.
Really?
That one pissed me because the iconography on the shoulder pad is wrong. It is like it has actual like a head turned to the side. Versus, like, if you actually look at it, it's got the blood droplet and the raven, but it actually has a head to the side. It's not the pointed overhead view of the raven. So that's why, like, that one pissed me off to no end. I'm like, why did you do that, GW? But I mean, I understand because like Sega owns the rights for that particular chapter and for that particular imagery. So I mean, the fact of the matter that now with Dawn of War 3, they have such nice partnership now. Where they're now allowed to put out that kind of iconography. Like, it is on Captain Gabriel, or the Chapter Master Gabriel Angelos, his shoulder pad is the proper icon.
Still alive, apparently. I don't know how.
Well, duh. Because he's Chapter Master Gabriel Angelos.
But he died in one of the
one of the endings, right? So yes. That's not the canonical ending, because they had to make sure that you could play all types of endings. So the canonical ending is the one where he survives, like mauled to all kinds of hell. Yeah. Right. But that is the canonical ending.
Isn't his actual sculpt like heavily scarred too, or something?
Currently, like from the images and all the stuff that I've seen, I haven't played Dawn of War 3. As everybody can kind of know from looking at the reviews, and not necessarily the greatest of Dawn of Wars.
Really?
From my understanding, because it comes off very MOBA-esque, from my understanding. Okay. Where you're just kind of like, there's not a lot of there is some base building, but it's not a key like role playing kind of. Well, not role playing, but like.
Wasn't that the issue with 2 as well, though? Well, it went down to like squads. It made things feel smaller.
Well, two was going for a more of company heroes-esque feel, where they're like squad-based tactics, where you're doing all this kind of cover system stuff like that, which is fun in itself, but it's no Dawn of War 1. It's no,
I remember building up those bases as the Chaos player just so I can get a Bloodthirster, just like spamming like crazy, and just like, that was a really good game. I think that was my first introduction to 40K, and then I saw Fantasy when I was a kid too, and all that shit. But yeah, that's it's good. Yeah. It's good to see that I'm not the only one that have those horrible like GW chips go off when you see some Blood Raven shit. Like, you're just like, oh man, I could. And if I did get those models, I could put them together, and I'd be so excited to paint them. I just paint an entire army, and then I have a whole other army, and like it wouldn't be an issue. But yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that those 3 books written by C.S. Gato were not that great.
Yeah.
So depressing.
Yeah.
So depressing.
Well, what are you gonna do? But okay, so we got you down for you got your multiple armies. We got how long you've been here. What do you think? Just give us just a quick little once over what you think about the group that we play in, the South Austin Warhammer 40K group, and just I don't know, just kind of almost grade it. Give me a grade average for this for just the people that we have in the group right now, our potential, just whatever you want. Just go hog wild.
For the group, it's.
You can be brutally honest too.
Yeah. The group is I like the group. I like having part of this community and things like that. So and I listen to a bunch of podcasts, probably about 12 different podcasts, and you hear about their groups and stuff like that, and being part of a group, I feel like part of other groups as well, because you can also hit on these similar cylinders as all these other people. So it definitely, you feel very much connected to the hobby as a whole with people across the world at this point. And so I like being part of a group. The potential is high. It's quite high that what we can possibly achieve as a group to go do things. Are we trying to achieve that potential? Not always, but again, because we're a casual group, and that's where we're kind of staying with for now, and also we're also trying to cultivate newer players or newer people into the group. So that's perfectly fine. I personally kind of wish we did a little bit more narrative campaign-esque, or more people of that mindset. There is a lot of talk, I feel like, on the Facebook group where we talk a little bit more on the competitive side of things, but that's just the easiest way to determine, strengths and weaknesses, especially since we have this new edition. So I totally understand why these discussions are occurring. I just kind of wish that a little bit more people would just like push for a little bit more of that story about element for their armies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. I'm glad you're saying it, and just for any of the new people that are maybe new to the group that are listening to this for the first time, we have absolutely everybody when it comes to our group right now. It's just like, I'd like to think most of us want to play narrative, but I think realistically now it's pretty split down the middle of like maybe 50-50 of people. I shouldn't say 50-50. I'm pretty sure there's like a good 25% that are just straight up, I just want to roll dice, and that's it. They could care less about narrative or competitive play. But it's an interesting little dynamic right now, for sure. We're definitely growing at a rapid pace, and like you're saying, being connected to the hobby. I feel the same way, especially listening to small shout out to TFG Radio. If you want another podcast to listen to, they're a great podcast. The way they talk about their group and their store and everything and their community, it sounds like they have the same or more like group of people. They have a giant group of people to pull together, and that have their monthly tournaments at the shop that they do, and then they have just a bunch of people that they constantly just circle in and out to play for competitive play, to kind of gear up for stuff and whatnot. I mean, that's cool. That's not quite where we're at, but we definitely have the manpower now. Like, were you there this last Tuesday?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Like right now, like as somebody else pointed out, like Noah came in. And he's like, why are there so many doubles games? Like, we don't have enough tables right now to like really cover all the people who want to play in all these different armies and stuff. So definitely table space is a thing that we kind of would be nice to have. We got more of that. But again, like we gotta support mages. It's like, because if we don't do that, then there's no reason for them to support us. Yeah. We're just lucky enough to let them let us be there and mooch.
Oh, I know. And it's gotten to the point. Where it's like for the first time ever, I had to play on the outside tables in where all the people play Magic, and I almost feel like I'm encroaching on them, and I almost feel bad. It's just like they are the breadwinners for that for that store. And that's just the way it is. Magic pulls in money, and good for them, good for Wizards of the Coast, and for cultivating a community of competitive, hardcore people that show up week after week, and of course Mages for putting it on and making that happen. But it's when we got what was it? Probably close to 20 people, I want to say. Does that sound about right?
It's close to it.
Pretty.
Yeah.
All right, so we had three or four tables with 2v2, and then like 3 or 4 tables, I guess, of like 1v1, and then those people cycled out for more people to play because people were waiting. That was absolutely insane to see that many people playing. But yeah, that's we're not pulling any money, so I mean, at that moment, it's hard to think about, and it's cringeworthy for sure. But if we keep pushing for a tournament here and there, pulling in that $15 that like everybody can pitch when they participate in a tournament, or I don't know. I know it's outlandish, but buying a box of Space Marines from the actual store wouldn't kill everybody. I know a lot of people do, and huge shout out to everybody that does contribute all that stuff. But yeah, that is. I'm glad we're on the same page. I'm so happy that there's more people out there like that in our group, and I feel like there are plenty of us. It's just this kind of whimsical idea of like, oh, like the shop that's not GW run, that's like it has a ton of space. It's like I feel like we're a unicorn like out there, and it just doesn't happen very often. And if we blink, we might miss it, or we might miss the mark as a community if we don't keep on showing our love, in our hobby dollars. But anyway, so that's gonna wrap for the first segment. We're gonna move on into some cool stuff. All right, here we are with our second segment of Split Fire. We're going to be talking about our next event that's going to be coming up on the 27th of August, and that will be our bit swap. We did a bit swap last January, and it was fucking amazing. We had a turnout of close to 30 people, and as the roster looks right now, I think we have about 19 confirmed and about 13 to 15 maybes, and odds are most of the confirmed people will be bringing either friends, family, or significant others to the get together, and our community will you'll get to see it all hang out, and it's a fucking phenomenal feeling to kind of be surrounded by that many people that are kind of touched by this hobby and that have a love and a passion for it. If you ever have any weird obscure bits, or you're a bit you like to bits bash everything in your army, or maybe you're just looking for those 2 melta-guns for your bike squad, whatever it is, come down with your bits. Please try to have them organized. There were a few people last time that came with Taylor Maine, his like orc carrying case. It's like, yeah, dude, it was that bad. We had 2 rollers of those from one person. I was like, no, you go. I'm like, space is super tight right now. We got like 30 people, and then he's just like, oh yeah, pulling up with us. I was like, like, that's really nice. That's super cool to have all those bits, but how many of those actually do you need to have here? It's like, How many other orc players we have in the group? Yeah. You need bits. No, exactly. Well, I will say, it wasn't Taylor Maine. Taylor Maine wasn't able to make it. He needs to make it to this next one. He really does. But he just had everything else. It was cool, but it was just hard. Everybody's encouraged to bring not just bits, but whole models that have been sitting in the closet that you have no use for, or stuff that you haven't assembled yet that you won't. I might be trading off an entire army there. It's gotten to that point where I have just an...
Your Imperial Fist?
Well... Okay, 2 armies. Yeah, it's bad. I got a problem. We all have problems. That's why we're here. If you ever need a shoulder to cry on, I'm sure Sherman will be more than happy to.
Don't worry, I cry alone by myself.
Oh, no you don't. Come on, man. You can call me anytime, bro. But yeah, no, anyway, we got... it's a super, super fun event. It's at ABGB Brewery. Fantastic, great beers on tap. If you don't drink or if you're too young, totally cool. For everybody, there's an amazing amount of food there that is super legit. Fucking great banh mi sandwiches, French fries, pizza. I don't know why I looked at you when I said banh mi. I'm sorry, bro.
It's okay.
It's okay, man.
Don't worry. I'm just half Korean. That's
For all our listeners at home, Sherman is half Korean. Anyway, so that's my whole little spiel on that. We have just come down and have a good time. It's going to be open from about 12 or 12:30 till about 3 or 4. I have been in contact with the people at ABGB, and they have said like, oh, you guys might want to be gone by about 3 or 4. But then she came back and said, you're like, forget it. Like, if you guys want to stay longer, stay longer. But it's just going to get loud because there's going to be a band there. So if you guys want to come all day or maybe towards the tail end and kind of make a day out of it, just bring the lady, bring the man, bring the whatever you align with. I don't care. And just hang out and have a good time, listen to some music, drink some beer, eat some food, relax. I can only hope that we attract enough new people. I know we got Wyatt last time. Wyatt was a great new person that just showed up to the Bit Swap and like, hey, what is this all about? And he's with the group now, and it's been a little bit, and hopefully we get more people like that. Anyway, so now we're going to move on into our next little tidbit of this section. Is our next event that we're planning and in the works is a campaign of some sort. And Sherman has had a few experiences, positive and negative, I'm sure, with planning campaigns and story writing, and just kind of his whole lead up to where his head's at. So you guys know where your kind of group leaders. Leaders? Are we leaders? I don't think we're leaders.
I'm definitely not a leader.
We're group aficionados, musketeers. Let's no.
That means we're French.
No, we're not French. We are soldiers. We are a company of people. We're a commune. I don't know. We're something. We're something special. Let's just say that we're something special. I think you've heard enough people on the podcast so far with Chuck and Eric and Phil and Kyle and Chris and everybody and Matt. We really do. If you have something profoundly amazing that you're passionate with, like story writing or rules writing, anything, please come to the admins so we can talk about some cool shit that we can do with the group. But from there, I'm going to pass it off to Sherman. So tell us a little bit about kind of your background with maybe campaigns and story writing and all that jazz.
Well, I really don't have a lot personally, just because I only partake. Really, I haven't actually done any actual writing. Only recently, one of my friends, or my roommate, he's trying to develop an RPG system. So,
all right.
Yeah. Cool. But I'm generally one of his verbal backboard of like what he's trying to bounce off idea, and then because I can really look at something and just like this is where it kind of falls apart, or have you thought about looking at this perspective? So I generally keep up with that Korean adage of adapting things to something else, not necessarily creating my own thing.
That works.
I mean, look at Samsung. They make great TVs. LG makes amazing refrigerators. They didn't make them, but they're now phenomenal.
No, I can get that. I can get that. I can respect that, definitely. And why go through all the trouble, honestly? I feel the same way too. So, I don't discount yourself is I guess what I'm trying to say to the fact that you do these things like play test and junk. So yeah, that's totally fine.
Well, it's just, it's something new, something exciting. It's something and then it's also a nice bonding experience to try to work over something and seeing people excited about something that you partook in doing in its creation. That's always it's always a fun aspect of this hobby. So I just would like to be part of that, and I also like to see other people try to develop that kind of response in other people as well. So where they also would like to do those things on their own as well. And so therefore, necessarily, I don't have to be on the front burner. I can be on the back burner. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, have you had any experience leading any sort of campaigns at all?
I mean, for a brief moment, I was a GM for an Only War campaign, but that's one of the Fantasy Flights.
Which
RPG.
one was?
Only War is for the Imperial Guard.
Oh, the one where everybody dies second session.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. I mean, I luckily only got like one character killed off in our what was it, our actual second session. So
was it accidental?
It was really brutal, and he was super happy how it turned out.
Oh,
honestly.
really?
Like, everybody was like, "That's amazing!" Being cleaved in half by an orc while he was stabbing a bayonet into his face and did nothing. It was amazing.
Oh,
no. Like, story-wise though, like he, like the commissar's fighting off the orc as best he can. He's trying to support him. He stabs him in the face, and it does.
Oh, it was a commissar?
Well, there was a commissar fighting, and who wasn't able to, like, he for some reason couldn't hit whatsoever, and then so. All of a sudden, like, my friend shows up and he like stabs his bayonet into this orc, and it literally does 0 damage. He successfully hits and does 0 damage. So here I describe it as like the bayonet sticking through under his jaw, going upwards towards into his skull, but it does nothing. So he just turned around, looked at him, and then he just critical rolled, killed him in half and split him down the torso. Like bisecting him in a diagonal.
No.
But everyone's like, that is so cool. That like even though he's dead, it was just really cool. Like, because like it's so 40K, everything about that.
So grimdark.
So grimdark. I'm trying to kill orcs. They don't do anything, and they just kill you in close combat and murder stroke you. And then all of a sudden the Sanction Psyker pulls a Gandalf. You shall not pass. Boom, and dead.
He just explodes his head.
Well, pretty much, yeah. So.
That's awesome. So you're definitely just that you drive for that narrative. That's what draws you to campaigns and all this other stuff.
Definitely. I mean, before I even really started playing the game with the models, there was a solid 2-year period. I was just reading books.
Nice.
Just reading books. So I mean, in that time period, I walked into the GW store. I'm like, I'm interested, but I don't have money. Being a college student at the time, but I was buying books and I was reading them, and I was like, man, it'd be so cool to actually replicate these things on the table. So yes. I mean, that's why because of being a history major background, that slight historical feel of like reliving those things and you partaking in that has always been fascinating for me.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. Since you brought up that you were a history major, you can see that GW actually pulls a shit ton of their content from actual real world events and stuff with, every Primarch. It just it's just like you can definitely link them to giant historical figures throughout world history. It's absolutely crazy to see the parallels drawn between them. But what you having having your history background, do you find that too cheesy, or do you find that something that like I get it? Is that something that you kind of draw on yourself and you see your little bit of yourself, that little bit of Korean, like we don't have to make anything new, we just need to tweak it a little bit, and that's really just it. So.
I definitely. There is some cheese aspect to it, but it only is cheesy to those that know. To anybody else, it's new. It's a whole foreign concept, and that's another sad part about, especially in our American education system, when it comes to history. Nobody really pays attention to, especially the world history, let alone American history. And so, we have these parallels being drawn, but there are so many people who don't get the parallels because they're not interested in history. At least for the European audience, I would think they have a little bit more vested interest because it's literally happening in their backyard for most of the world history. You know?
I don't know. There's some pretty stupid Brits out there.
Oh. Well, when you have a channel to protect you for most of it, like that's. But again, like when you look at the like hearing Gav Thorpe's interviews with all this other podcasts he's on, he made mention about all the like the early Games Workshop during third and fourth ed and stuff, and talking about Jess Goodwin and stuff. You have this sense that they were really knowledgeable about history going into the subject of developing the game and the lore and the background. The current player base, especially of the teen to the 20s area, doesn't have that same background for the most part. Like as a whole.
Yeah.
Versus, there are probably plenty of us that are kind of leading the group that are like who know about history, and therefore they try to relate these historical events to these things that happen here. But at the same time, most of that younger player base doesn't have that knowledge, and then some of that older player base doesn't really care at that point because and again, they have enough personal life issues. Like, why should they care about like past things that?
Yeah.
So
I can see that, but even then, man, I mean, yes, some of us do actually have a little bit more knowledge or have the know-how to dig a little bit deeper, that have been into the hobby a little bit more, or just a little bit older to kind of be interested in those kinds of those things. But if that is where I'm sure you're 100% correct, the people that started this, the GW story writing for the background, the lore, everything, were probably had some sort of history degree or just huge history nerds. Now, do you think with the way now that our 41st millennia is now being pushed forward, and it's no longer the 31st, it's now we're getting this new lore, these new ideas, these new this and brand new GW on top of all that, do you think it's still going to lean into those things, and we're still going to get those tidbits of like, you know what, we're going to see the Khan fall the same way he did when he was trying to conquer Asia? Like, are we going to see that? Or he hadn't really, he draws parallels, but not all of them. Like, he wasn't this giant conqueror who spread throughout the galaxy. He was just this weird homebody almost. So, but like weird shit, like the Primarchs coming back, like all this stuff. Like, do you see drawing on history again to maybe hold a candle to it? Or do you think GW has enough lore to where they're just like, we can write whatever the fuck we want, like it doesn't have to make any sense? Or what would you prefer, I guess?
So Games Workshop doesn't need to draw the parallels to history at this point, because they have such a in-depth.
But would you like them to? Is the question.
And so
would you like?
Well, I'm saying like they don't have to.
Yeah,
if they did, right? There's a lot at that point. There's a lot of connectivity that you can get with some of your player base, and then also with your reader base. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's just like, do you want to? I could just read a history book for those things. Why do I don't necessarily need to do that kind of thing. Do they want to retell history? I don't think that's what they're really trying to do. What they're really trying to do is just push their own story kind of deal. Mm-hmm. And so, but with the setting, if they do keep those historical contexts, it does feel more manageable for us, because we have something that we can look back in our actual history and compare it to. So therefore, it's not such a foreign concept. Like for instance, like listening to Gav Thorpe talk about the 20 legions, and then 2 of them being missing. Well, that's a parallel to Roman history. Like there was 2 legions stricken from the record, and they literally just brought that over from our Roman history. And so
I think I actually listened to that interview. That was really interesting.
Yeah, and then Games Workshop was able to, from there, elaborate on that whole idea of like why were they stricken and all this other stuff. And so, but they don't have to necessarily like go the exact same historical route. And that again, that them expanding on the universe in this manner is really cool. At the same time, I want people to also understand that they need to let Games Workshop needs to leave space for the players. If some people was like, I want all the story being told to me, it's like, that's not why you're playing. The reason you're playing is because you need to develop it yourself. Mm. So
I get that. The man, it's a I really would love to see. I would really love to see more history involved with 40K, because I wouldn't call myself a history buff, but definitely, I guess a nerd. I definitely have a respect for it, and really appreciate all those little tidbits, those little pieces of weird, obscure parallels that they draw. But what would you do now that we kind of know like where your head's at? We know that you're pen and paper RPG player. You've done a little bit of campaign work. You've played the GW system for quite some time now. Do you have any ideas, or what actual GW campaigns have you partaken in, and were they fluff focused, or were they what were they exactly?
GW proper campaigns that they set up, I actually haven't really partaken in any, unfortunately, just because of time constraints and stuff like that. I mean, there was that one time where Mazes was doing the quote unquote campaign where you like win battles, you get these planets kind of deal.
Yeah.
Personally, I did not feel like that was an actual campaign system. There was no real true story narrative, it felt like. It was just kind of like, here's some benefits for winning, and here's some, or here, and then, but no, and there's also some other things too. But it wasn't, when I hear the word campaign, in the sense of 40K, there has to be a story of some sort. If there is no story, it's not a real campaign at that point. It's just at that point a league of sorts.
Yeah.
And I'm not, league play sounds interesting and stuff like that, but I'm playing 40K for story. That's what I'm here for. That's what I really truly care about. That's why I don't care if this person brings a ridiculous list. I'm like, do it. Like let's do it. Like that could possibly happen in this story. Like, and here's how narratively would say it would happen. I was playing against one of our Collins last Tuesday, and he attacked my flyer with his Praetorians who had the jump rule, right? Because they have. Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, put those models on top of my plane, because that's how they would attack it, and I want to visually see that, because that looks amazing. And then he had the Nightbringer right below, like reaching up into the plane. It's like that physically looked like how it should go down, and like story wise how it would look. And so that's where I want to go with anything with a campaign. There has to be some kind of element of a story. As for with a story for the group, it's just so much harder, just because like it's one thing with like two people, but it's a whole other thing with trying to get like a whole group of people on a same kind of like agenda. Especially since we have so many different factions that are located in so many random places. Like listening to like the independent characters, how they did an aliens only, a Xenos only campaign where they had this interesting story. Like that sounded really cool. It completely, like they said, if you want to play Imperium, too bad. If you want to play anything like non-Xeno, too bad, right? You can't play, because again, this is the story we're trying to tell. And so like that needs to kind of happen for any kind of campaign, really, of an idea of like, this is the story we want to tell, and everybody has to kind of be on board with that.
So you got your Tau, your Orcs, your Tyranid, Necrons too.
Necrons, Eldar.
So okay.
Like, well, I mean, those are a bunch of Xeno races, but
yeah.
I mean, there are lots of Xeno races, but again, like we don't. A Xeno-based
like
story is kind of
even
hard.
that is pretty. I mean, it's pretty hard to draw a story in with all that stuff. Like those are very, very different armies to try to incorporate. Because just speaking from personal experience, like trying to run a campaign, it was one of those like passion pieces where I love to write stories and all this stuff and get it going. And I had the best send off for the first like 2-3 weeks. It was great, and then it just started to peter off with the fact that like I was writing these nice long narrative pieces, and I was like, oh dude, who read that? And like 5 people in the group read it. I was like, oh god damn it. It's a real bummer. It really takes a community to make one of those good campaigns happen, and that's a great idea. I haven't listened to that podcast where they're talking about that, but like really restricting it down to like a good batch of people who are very passionate about their one army, their one Xenos army, or their one Imperial army, if they're just going to be doing a Xenos or Imperial campaign. That's a super good idea. I like that.
Right. Well, and another thing I saw like with mini wargaming when they did that certain interplanetary campaign, they had all the content producers leading a force of some sort. They generally those content producers picked a race, right? And then any guest people who showed up, they would pick the content producer they wanted to support. So like I think that's how it would have to go for any group. Is like you can't have everybody with their own army kind of deal. If on a large scale like that, if you like 30 different people, that's not gonna work. You know, there will definitely have to be, you know, a couple generals, like 4 to 6, who are like always there every week to plan out how their game setups or stuff like that, where their planetary actions are going to occur, stuff like that. Just like how they are in the 40K in the 40K story. You know, you have war masters, you have all these other, you know, you have the Chaos Warband leaders and stuff like that, who are like the leader of that group. Orc war bosses, you know, the one war boss is in charge of the WOG. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have so many small splintered factions trying to get their own little part of the galaxy when it is part of a bigger drive. When we always talk about the 41st millennia narrative.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's to just incorporate that, since you brought that up, the idea is when you do a campaign, you really have to take in fucking space battles, planets, armies, like alliances. It's like it's super exciting to think about, but to sit down and plan it is super hard. And that's honestly what I'm thinking about doing with the group, especially you. I'm hoping you be able to jump in and at least give us either some play testing ideas or some rules ideas to help us push along a new campaign for the group coming into the once summer ends, everybody goes back to school, all that kind of stuff. The group might stay the same. Oh God, I'd be so shocked if it still stays at like 20 people a night every Tuesday. But
from my little experience from the last couple weeks, you know, we generally have an older group of people who are showing up. You know, it's not necessarily the younger people. There are a good amount of college students that are part of the group, but at the same time, there's a lot of older adults who are, you know, have their own personal lives and stuff like that. But for the most part, they can squeeze by getting it on a Tuesday.
Oh yeah, so that's true. But also we got I don't know if you realize, we got like 4 or 5 people who are teachers in our group. Yeah, I know Eric, we got Jacob, and then we have, I think there's a handful other ones. I think one of the new guys that just started showing up like a week ago is like a teacher as well. So it's like their schedules totally change, especially in the summer. So it might thin out, it might not. But if it does thin out, it might be able to be a little bit more manageable. But don't get me wrong. I hope if there's anybody new listening to this, don't be afraid. Please come down to the shop. We still want you. We still want to play some games and get you introduced to the group. We are more than willing to take more people. Having more people is a good problem. We want more people, definitely. So we can pump up our campaigns. Maybe even like if we have enough people, like I was saying, if you have a passion for story writing, for rules, playtesting, all that shit, like we want you to help. Like I do not run this community whatsoever. Me just trying to ramble off a little bit ago about what the fuck we are. Like I mean, realistically, the only structure we really have are the admins on the Facebook page. And that's really just to clean up dog shit off of the Facebook page. And that's about it. I mean, we got people planning events and all this shit. I like to head that up just because that's what I feel like is exciting for me, and it's a bullshit reason for me to say, hey, I got my hobby in. Like, I got a bunch of shit written down for ideas. But if you guys have more people out there that want to partake and help in this campaign, we would definitely love to take some more people in to make it happen. Second part of the second, talking about campaigns and what the possibility of starting our campaign that we're hoping to do. Like I said, after the summer break, and just some ideas that we got literally bouncing around for content, for narrative, maybe some rules ideas that we've played through that we like and don't like, stuff like that. So Sherman, what do you think? You were just saying off mic, I'm sorry, that like it's so hard to find to write a story that everybody's intrigued with, that everybody can jump on board with, because everybody's interesting, and it's like you have to somehow focus your energy somewhere. What do you think the best way to go about that is, or how would you want to tackle it? I know you were mentioning before, you just like, fuck everybody except this group. Like, we're just going to super hone this experience into people that can appreciate it. And you know what? Imperium, we'll get you next week, or we'll get you next session. Like, no big deal. Right. Well, so let's, go ahead.
I mean, I definitely don't want to run a Xenos campaign like that. That's, it's too hard to do a Xenos campaign, in my opinion, just because, like, it's so hard to, they are alien. They're not human. And therefore it's very hard to just say, here's their perspectives of how they want to do everything. We can try to add a human touch to it, but you really, to get into the, like, if you think about the, like, some of those books that are out there, like, to really get into the mindset of those alien races is really difficult, because it is alien. They are not human, and to say that they think like humans is a disservice to that race in the first place, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, we also said this earlier on, Mike. People have to be understanding that this is narrative. This isn't about balance. This is about a story, right? And that everybody at the table, or anybody at any of these tables, are trying to tell, right? You're not trying to just win your game and make yourself feel good about that. No, you are trying to, between the two of you, tell a story. Mm-hmm. and be willing to put up with a bunch of like random stuff that's not really technically legal for the game, or feels very one-sided. It should. No battle should ever be fully equal. I mean, Sun Tzu always said stuff like that, you know, in the Art of War. You know, like, these are masters of war. Yeah. Like, whoever's these generals are and stuff like that, they're never going to try to put themselves in a situation where they're in a equal battle. They're always trying to push for some kind of advantage here or there.
Yeah. But, like, going back to that is something that I've heard on many podcasts, but, like, pushing towards the fact, like, it's not just you. It's about the experience, and it's about the whole of the group. Could you remember back just recently, last few times that you've played, do you have something that happened in your game that you're not, like, this is so narrative, this is so interesting that, you know what, I don't even care that I'm losing right now. It's no big deal. Or I don't care that I'm crushing this guy, because, you know what, we're having a good time and we are playing this out because this is the way it would happen. Do you have like a player or a certain army that you face that happened with? Or?
Oh, I mean, just this last Tuesday against Colin's Necron army. You know, we had I keep joking about we're having our dynasty. Yes! We're having dynasty wars with our dynasty warriors. It's such bad puns. Sorry. But yeah, like when he attacked one of my night sides with his Praetorians and the Nightbringer. You know, I was like, can you put those models on top of my plane? Like, I want them standing on top of it, because that's what they're doing. They're flying up there and they're stabbing down towards the cockpit and stuff like that, stabbing into this plane as the Nightbringer's coming up below trying to slash at it. That's what I physically saw on the table. I was like, that's really cool. He asked me about he was trying to charge my Triarch Stalker with his Scarabs, and he's like, well, I can't put my models underneath. And I was like, no, they're Scarabs. They're going to be crawling underneath it. Put them underneath the thing. I don't care if that gives you, because you had that whole 10 inches. Yeah. Put them, like, I don't have an actual physical base on this model. Put them underneath it, right? It just looks so cool that they're just scouring underneath it as it's climbing up and just like eating it from the inside, like from below. You know, yeah. like looking at it, I was like, that looks cool. That to me is what it should be. It shouldn't be about, you know, like, oh, you gotta, you know, respect my inch and stay away. Like, just like all this stuff.
I love that. I love that about you, and I love that about like the good majority of the people, the founding people that kind of started this group, is like we have that respect for the game where we're like, let's take the rules and throw them out the fucking window, because this is going to be a fucking fun game, And I think some of our new players are kind of lost to that concept or just haven't been introduced to it yet. It's just like, you don't need to be by the rules so much, dude, that it's going to affect how much fun you're going to fucking have. Like, it's been said since the dawn of time, play the game the way you want to play it. And that is it. That is like, I think that was like rule number 1 in one of the rule books, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like
that.
Yeah, it was like that was the thing. Like, this is the way that we've all figured out how to have more fun. Like, that scarab thing is fucking awesome. Or even jump packs actually being able to fit up on people. That should happen. That should be they should have cool like narrative rules for that shit. Just like fucking do it. Just like just make it happen. I had a situation last week. I was playing a 2v2 match, and I had my Emperor's Children running around trying to shoot down Max's Space Wolves. It was one of those games where I started to feel like, oh shit, I was like, my side was definitely starting to win, but for some reason I was trying to push forward, and a lone sergeant by himself, nothing special, just started to weather everything. Like, he was a captain or a leader of a Devastator squad, or a Longfangs. He was a leader of the Longfangs, and he was just chilling there. He was the last guy in the squad left. Everybody was dead. He stood there, and he took, I think I counted up at the end of the game, like 24 hits from just bolters and strength 4 wounds and some strength 5 hits too. But he made every single fucking roll, and he wouldn't die. And he actually clogged up my charge that I tried to get off with like Lucius and a bunch of other guys. And it was like, fuck, dude. Like, this guy is super cinematic. And like, I couldn't imagine any other Legion where he is like this grizzled veteran. I think Longfangs are even like, they're talked about.
They're the oldest.
They are, because they're the coolest headed. They can't, they've already gotten out all their like teenage angst and their bloodlust, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go chop some orcs up. Like, no, we're gonna lay back here, we're gonna lay down fire. But this veteran literally stood there, and he took the shots, and he fired back with his plasma gun. He actually took a few swings at Lucius the Eternal too, and I respect that. I respect that a lot, dude. And it's those small like little things that happen in a game where you're like, let's just play it for the story. Like, I don't care that I'm winning. I don't care that I'm losing. Just fucking play it for the story, and that's it. And I think that's the kind of campaign that we, if let's say me and you, for example, were to write a campaign, I think that's what we would center it on. And I'd hope enough people would catch on. Do you think it would with the group that we have right now?
There's probably at least like 10 good people who would be like really down for that. As for everybody else, I think because they're more of the casual, like, if I have time, I can try to get in there to try to get those games in. But the idea is probably intriguing for them. But like, to really commit to like getting a game in to try to tell this story, I don't necessarily think that's for the entire group, and it doesn't have to be either. You know, it's just like, again, it's just for something that we want to develop for those that want it. We're trying to just cater to a group of people who, you know, who want to get this little, you know, like itch in their system, and get it scratched. Yeah. You know, so I can see it happening for, like I said, definitely a small number, but as for consistently for everybody, I don't think that's gonna be really the thing. So,
what do you think about this? The hold on, I'm gonna grab that cat. I do not want her on that bed. It's an air bed, and my cat with her fucking claws is gonna crawl all over this air bed and pop it. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about the idea of not everybody playing, which would be sad, but there are plenty of people out there that would be super stoked and on board to participate. What do you think about the idea of maybe testing people, just almost like a quiz, like, are you worthy to like take part in my campaign?
I don't know like that.
No. Just hear me out. Okay. Okay. So we have people just we announce like, hey, we're gonna do a campaign, and this campaign, we want you to submit a friendly list. Super simple request. Submit a friendly list, and we literally just take all these lists and break them down. Like, how friendly is this list? How themed is this list to their army and their place? Not necessarily their play style, but their lore.
So I think we can go before that even. Just instead of like build a list, it's like, all right, so here's a part of the galaxy we wish to partake in our fight. From there, like, please write a story of why you're there. What it's like is if you're willing to write a story about your army and why they're there, why they're partaking, right? And that alone will show us like those people have the drive and the interest in the first place. Give us like 100 words, or 1-page paper of like your army and the reason they're there, right? Because that alone, for some people, like, oh, I won't be able to write that much. Like, once you start writing, you actually find out that you're able to fill up a piece of paper fairly quickly. And so
especially with all the lore that everybody just collectively has from dude, you could just like
the game's 30 years old. I mean, and there's stories for the past 30 years about it. So I think before even the whole list building concept, it's just like, can you tell a story? Are you willing to tell a story? If you're not willing to do that, I'm sorry, this is probably not for you. Yeah, we're gonna have all these. It's a game where we're playing all this stuff, but we want these people who want to tell a story for this particular narrative thing. Mm-hmm. As cool as and awesome as it would be if that you want to play and partake in it, if you're not willing to do the work of just tell your army's story, then I'm sorry, I can't condone having you part of the group that is doing that, because that person on the other side is doing it, right? So give him the respect of doing what he at least did as well. So I think we can just start with that. Like, tell us why you're there, right? So, but
I can get that. Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense, and definitely can weed a few people out that just aren't as into it as others. But oh man, that would be pretty cool. As I love reading other people's like fluff pieces about. I'll sit there just like any good nerd and just like, tell me the story about your fucking army. Like, I want to know like why it's painted like that, why their bases look like that, where they come from, all that shit. Like, I have just on my note section of my phone or my iPad, I just have hundreds of like little stories that I've written for HQs or D&D campaigns or ideas for Space Marine campaigns. Like, fucking out the wazoo. Like, it's so much fun. The same way this podcast is super fun. Like, I had no idea if I could sit down and talk to people about this for as long as we can, but we've been able to manage so far. But that's a good mechanic to try to weed people out. What do you think about maybe what kind of content would you want to help produce, or how would you go about it? Let's say we get a good round group of 10 guys. We get Imperium, we get Xenos, we get everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, ideally, odds are with our group we'd probably get mostly Imperial and Chaos. But anyway, it's with keeping that in mind, like, what kind of story would you want to write or help write at least?
For me, there are so many chunks of the galaxy that are not covered in this story narrative that is 40K, and it'd be nice to just kind of elaborate on some of those. I mean, they did that on purpose for us. They purposely left us gaps so we can fill it ourselves. Yeah. As much as like I like the stories from the books and stuff like that, I don't want canon conflicts personally. That would drive me nuts. Like, but that's not what happened there. Like, this actually happened here. Yeah. So like for instance, like someone's like, oh, I have a Strike model. This is the year we're partaking in. It's like, well, Strike was actually over here. There's no reason for him to be over here, and he's not dying here because that's not where he died. So it makes no sense like having some of those like the named special characters like being part of the army. Like, no, come on, this is your army. Give at least a little bit more effort than just like fill in the blank with this character. Like, no, that's not part of the. Yeah. I don't feel like that's really true to those characters and stuff like that.
Well, the independent characters situation is, I think a lot of us, if people would write a story the way that we were suggesting, I think plenty of those people would be willing to be writing those stories that they're writing are probably about their generals, which aren't named characters. They're probably going to be some like general blah blah blah, captain whatever, psycher whoever, and they make up a name, they think of like their backstory, and like I think most people that are willing to write those stories would be, I don't know, I'm assuming, would be probably cool with the idea of no name characters whatsoever. Like that's it. Yeah. And we're just going to go and see how your general progresses. Almost like the Path to Glory campaign. Mm-hmm. Like that would be, I still really want to play that. Really bad. Really, really bad. I really want to play that. But anyway, what do you think?
So, I mean, I fully agree with that. It's but what we're saying, like, what part of the space would we cover? I don't want to like, oh, let's play in Damocles. No, that's already being covered. And, there's too much already story there. That's proper canon. Where like things like that. Where I don't want to step on the toes of actual quote unquote history of the 41st. Prehistory. Pre-enacting as some things. So I don't want to go that route. I kind of want to I want to do our own thing, where we can be like, it is our sector we're fighting over. It is our own armies there. It is our own ownership of this part of the galaxy that we're trying to carve our name into, instead of just like something that's already being done. Like everybody else is also like, there's so many other people who are doing that as well, who are just like, I'd rather not. Like, what can we do on our own? What mark can we leave of ourselves into this own universe? So therefore, when you go to somebody else, to another group, if you randomly move or whatever, and so you're like, oh, we did this thing in here, and then that for a lot of people is like, whoa, that's really cool. Like that you're able to take that kind of ownership. First, and some people, like you were saying with newer players, then right now some of them just don't have that feel for like the ownership of the game or of the universe. Like, so like doing stuff like our own sectors or stuff like that, or our own like even just a planet, just a planetary campaign, not necessarily a sector wide or anything like that. So just like that alone, just to own that, that would, I think, would help a lot of people. And I think if we're going to for initial campaign kind of stuff, maybe what we could do is like, here we have a like five planets in the solar system, and then these people are on these planets, so they're generally going to be playing against these people, like these same 3 or 4 people, whatever, and so they can tell the fight of this planet, and then we can have like some overall generals in the sector or for the solar system who are like, they're not doing well here, I pull them out of this planet, right? So that's why you don't see them fighting against those particular players anymore, but I need them over here, and he throws them at a different planet, whatever. So all of a sudden you have this player who's like, okay, I need you to play games against these people on this planet all of a sudden, because again, like it gives this like slight narrative feel for everybody. They're like, I was getting my butt handed to me by this guy over here on this planet, so now I have like less men or things like that, but now I'm being sent to a different front, because you have these kind of stories going on in 40K all the time. So to just, people have to keep that kind of thing in mind. So, of like ownership.
Oh, absolutely. And just to spitball some ideas, some wrenches that might get thrown into the cogs, how do you think you would handle, let's say, if you are fighting on the same planet, which is super narrative, you're playing the same like 3 or 4 people like over and over and over, trying to fight to win over that planet. What do you do if you get just a handful of people that are just like, I'm on this planet, and you know what, I am all down for the fluff, I'm all down to play, but like every game I've lost? Like, what do you do? Like, in the general, you'd hope that the general would pull them out, but what do you do at that point? Do you think it's a good idea to handicap people in a campaign in the name of trying to make things fun still, or are you pretty hard set on the idea of like, fake it till you make it? Just like keep going. It doesn't matter.
Oh, so I mean, I can definitely see some handicaps. There, people have to keep in mind of looking back at actual history and how warfare is actually done. We as the United States, we are a juggernaut when it comes to warfare because of our economic prowess, or quote unquote prowess, and how we can just throw money, machine, equipment at the problem like we did in World War II.
Yeah.
And so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a guaranteed. Like, look at Patton's advances in Europe. Eventually he advanced to the point where he ran out of gas. So so you can easily narratively talk about these kind of stories in the like on a planetary campaign where in the solar system idea I just threw out there right now, where you're just like, okay, so this person is getting smacked over and over again. Well, because of this, all of a sudden this guy has no vehicles there, or all of his vehicles are like can't move in this particular game because literally he's out of gas at this point because he's been pushing too hard. Where he's like, yeah, they're stuck there. They can shoot their gunboats, whatever. But now the other player is like, cool, he's outrun his supply lines at this point. This is the time to go strike him hard here. Yeah. Or you do a port where you're like, as long as the tactics allow that kind of deal for that kind of army, like you hit them in the soft spots and their supply lines and stuff like that. So then you give them a couple gains where you do handicap the player that's been winning this entire time. You're like, okay, fine. What needs to happen is this guy's actually going to hit you in your supply lines. You're not heavily defended or anything like that. You might have a couple protective troops on either, but then have that affect the next game of his like battlefield line where I said like maybe those vehicles can't move or anything because his supplies have been hit at that point. Okay. So those people who are playing on that planet who are partaking in that game, they also have to communicate to each other of the story they want to tell, right? So again, because any story is not about you, as much as people want to think about it, it's about us. Every player is about us together of how we're trying to tell this thing. So you try to talk with them first instead of like, don't complain to your GM first. Again, we're all adults. We all have the physical ability to speak and write. So we just go up to your other players like, hey, so I keep getting steamrolled. Let's try to come up with a story reason why I would win the next battle or whatever. Like, come up with something between the two of you, right? At that point, it makes you feel as the player a little bit more ownership of it because again, you partook in telling the story. You're doing this thing with this other people, and you also, getting this communication going on. So therefore, you want to keep playing. I would feel like that's how it would go down. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily a GM's responsibility the entire time to make sure every game goes, fun for everyone. No, like it's also on the players that are playing that game because they have to understand it's about us, not about me. Yeah. Anytime.
But yeah, it's just that balance, man. It's so fucking hard with the people contributing, and you even said earlier, man. It's just if you have a good GM that has his shit written down and has elaborate schemes and everything, people are going to remember that for the rest of their lives. Doesn't matter. It's like you need to strike on both fronts, and it is hard to make that happen. But I personally right now I'm fucking stoked. That sounds super super cool to like have a supply line run or something and maybe have like an extra 10 15 power level for like the attacker, the defender, not so much, and you can't use tanks. Like boom. Like that's it. Like put a Prometheum pipeline down, just like boom. This is like your main gas line. What little supplies you have left, guard it with your life. Yeah. Like, and if they get through, then they're going to get bonuses, blah, 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 blah. Or they're going to, who knows? We'll see. But I think that's super cool. The only thing that I'm thinking of is it is super cool to go back and forth with your opponent and talk about like, oh, here's the storyline and this and that. But I'm a huge fan of D&D. I love the idea of people running into situations, not knowing what to do, and then scrambling to figure out what the fuck is going on and what to do. So the idea of people working it out definitely makes sense, but it also takes away from that idea that the GM isn't kind of taking the brunt of it and telling you this is the story now. This is and making it work still. But I don't know, man. I kind of like your idea.
But that's where you need those layers going on. So like for instance, so that what I just talked about, that's a player on player on this planetary scale, on this continental scale. We're not talking about the 4 or 5 generals who are in charge of those particular armies, like those different armies up above, right? Yeah, so those guys are true. Because those guys at that point they're gonna like say, you keep getting beat here, I need you to go do this thing, because they're the ones that are throwing the like, hey, I need you to do this, right? And okay. So you need layers and everything that, like, so if you don't, because that's how war is fought in layers, right? You don't have the guy on the ground is not making the decisions at the continental level, so if you don't have these layers, I don't think it's going to go well in the first place. So it is one thing, like you said, like player on players, it makes the GM feel like he's not really pertinent or he's not really driving the narrative or anything like that. That's true. But that's why you had to have that other layer above the people who are playing on the planet to like try to force change or force certain situation to occur at that point where you're like, okay, where you just originally have like 2 faction forces kind of deal, and then you all of a sudden you're like, okay, these people can't play this week because they're a third faction I don't want joining yet, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, this third faction, I want you to hit this planet, this planet, this planet, hitting these particular sections, and then Tyranids, or Tyranids, or like awesome. Or a Necron 2, or you're like randomly, Necron 2 woke up, boom, you're like, you had no idea. So when you do that, all of a sudden you're like, now you're like, this is the situation you've created for them. They're like, oh shit, I now have this third faction to deal with who's now hitting this portion of my lines. How do I divert forces into dealing with this problem as well as this problem that's occurred? Because you now have that. But we've added a layer. That's how you're doing it. You're adding layers through these other factions as well at the grander scale, and they're trying to make those ripple down effect towards the small stuff. And then same thing in return, though. All this small stuff is also rippling back up, right? Which is making those guys make those decisions at the higher level to like, okay, this is how I want it to send it back down. There has to be cross communication between like vertical cross communication, not just horizontal.
Dude, I agree. It's all so fucking great in theory. I really do hope we can get something off the ground. And again, this is probably the 3rd time. Huge shout out for anybody who wants to help or participate in any way. Contact us. Contact me or Sherman, I guess, right now, because we're the only ones talking about this right now. But yeah, well, we definitely would love to get something off the ground pretty soon, or at least get the gears rolling. One aspect that we haven't talked about, which I think would be very nice, which rolls into our previous segment, is kind of pay where you play, and somehow either just kind of roll that into the campaign somehow, because if we do have that nice niche of like 10 people or so, maybe a few more, we'll see, get to the point where we're like, I don't know, you get reinforcements, go buy such and such and add it to your army, have it painted by in 2-3 weeks, right? Yeah, make it happen basically. Or we could do something along the lines of maybe just a straight up pay $20-$30, and this campaign is going to be guaranteed to last 2 months or something, and that's going to be, we'll just generate all that into either prize support or maybe some stuff to help the club. I don't know. We'll figure out something, but like it would be super cool to have something like that incorporated. What if you had to kind of scratch your head and think up some ideas? Could you how would you incorporate like getting mages involved?
Well, I know one of the employees at Mages, he wants to start partaking, but I mean, for him, he wants to like split a starter box, and then he also wants to start doing like monthly tournaments and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I talked to him briefly about that, and so like that'd be really cool on his part. For getting people to start playing and start supporting the store, if we actually saw in some way where, I think for some people they want to see also that our support is actually doing something that we can see that it actually benefits us. Like for instance, like you kept mentioning Taylor Maine, move your trees. Well, why can't we just go buy another shelf? Because our shelves are getting kind of crowded with the terrain we do have, and we're trying to get more here soon. So if we can just get one more shelf, like some of this, like you said, pay a little bit here so we can get another shelf, so we can get more terrain. Mm-hmm. And then we'll start getting more terrain to fill that shelf. Where you actually say like, okay, cool, we now have these items that you can now change up your tables, right? So you can tell the story better, right? If people can start realizing, if we start throwing money at them, at Mages, they could support us in different ways that, as gaming at the store, they can we can see, and not necessarily just like I get money throw them like so it's just like that just has to be kind of in people's minds, right? Like I would love to see a third shelf covered in terrain,
Trust me, I would too. But my only thing is I have this looming, like, just idea that, like, I have this crippling fear that they hate us. And I know it's not true. I know Mages does, just through the kindness of their heart, they do whatever they can to help support the group by giving us a place to play. And I try to think of it as if I was a business owner, and another shelf is more real estate in my shop. And what have we done to deserve that? Because I kind of went out of my comfort zone and I asked for that first shelf. I was like, hey, we need a new shelf. We'll pay for it. We'll bring it. We'll set it up and everything. No big deal. And he's like, okay, okay, that's fine. No big deal. To push for another one, I'm like, I would start to feel bad because who knows? I mean, they might have different plans for the space back there. I don't know. I mean, in an ideal world, where everybody who was at our shop, who was playing, bought their stuff from there, and we had plenty of shit going on through Mages, monthly tournaments and everything, I think we might have a bargaining chip to the point where we could ask for that next shelf or something, and everybody would be cool with it. I just don't know if we're at that point. I could be wrong. I could be totally off base. I could be just too insecure with my personal life of just trying to please everybody. I don't know.
Well, that's what with our campaign, like we would try to do, like maybe there would be a small buy-in for the campaign, and then like we would put that like, hey, we're buying in. Can we have that money directed towards another shelf or something like that? So could we, as a group, also like have a more, I guess, say where the money that we're spending actually goes for us, kind of deal? Because like, yeah, it helps run the store and all this stuff, but they're not stocking GW at Mages, like it's because the product doesn't move. We're not buying it off the shelves or anything like that, and then also that it's kind of hard for them to keep that kind of inventory.
Quick caveat: if you put up, they have a list. If you sign the list with your name and say what you want, they will order it. All right, carry on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I went and bought tactical objective cards through them. Because I put my name on the list and what I wanted, and boom. Yeah. Although right now with Games Workshop's inventory is not the greatest, so it's hard to get some of the products, just because like they did not expect the giant wave that is 8th edition of like sales.
Dude, they're sold out of some of the fantasy shit.
Oh.
And dude, I don't know if this is anything else, but like I even tried to dip into like, I wanted to check out some of the Lord of the Rings, and some of the Lord of the Rings shit was sold out, and I was like, what the fuck is going on with this?
Oh, like maybe for some of the Lord of the Rings and the fantasy stuff, it's just because like all of a sudden they've had to put a lot of production towards 40K because they weren't expecting all of a sudden, like who would have thought that, majority of their fine cast line is sold out? Who would have ever thunk that? There's like a lot of because a lot of their characters and stuff like that, like all of a sudden they're just like for at least like me as a Necron player, like all their special characters, fine cast, gone. Flayed ones, gone. Like they're just sold out. Wait for inventory to restock because again, like all of a sudden these things got rules, and they also like new edition, boom, all this stuff's just sold. So now they have to push production on this area that they're like, we weren't expecting that whatsoever. We were just kind of selling out our back catalog of this inventory that just wasn't moving, and all of a sudden it's gone, and now we have to restock it because there's now a demand for it. Yeah. So that I can totally see why other sections of the company are just kind of like, hey, you're not vital to our current existence, like such as Lord of the Rings or some of the fantasy line.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden like the sales, we as the player base are putting our money where our mouth is of like, we want to play 40K. Right, the money's going that route right now, so of course they're going to try to put more production, it feels like, towards those areas and try to restock those areas to make it so they can actually fulfill this giant boom of customer demand. So,
yeah.
So, but that's what I'm saying. Like for us at Mages, though, like if we could see a little bit more of like the money that we spend there going towards us, that's what I'm saying. Like if we can just say, hey, of the sales that we generate, could like $5 per or like $3 or whatever, depending on order, like 5% of this sale, can it goes towards equipment? Can it go towards terrain or something like that? Can we actually start seeing fruits of our purchases going towards us? That's what I mean by that. Can we discuss something out with like mages to do something like that? So not necessarily like cut into their like, can we see 50% of this stuff going towards our stuff? No. Like it's just like a small amount, so that but eventually it will be tangible for us, and like that I help bring that into the store so we can actually partake in using it. So
that's not a bad idea. I like that. I like that a lot. That's a really, really cool idea. I never thought about it like that. But but like you as a consumer, you're this is hard to do because you're pretty much on the same page as me when it comes to all this stuff. But as just a general consumer, just buying something from an independent retailer that's doing Games Workshop, they can or they might not want to, because the margin is so low, sell at a discount. And if they do, it's cutting into their profit. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, if like 5-10% of that discount that we get is like just going towards the store to buy like another shelf or something, that might be really, really cool. That might be very cool. I like that a lot.
And it'd be great if like mages would like put out like a flyer, banner, or whatever. Like, hey, by the way, your purchases like will go towards this thing. So instead of us giving you a discount, we're gonna buy something for you to help support your game in this way. Yeah. So like you said, like it's cutting into the profits of doing a discount. So if they don't do the discount, they're just like, the discount we would have given you, where all of a sudden we're gonna put it towards your play area instead. So we can get more of those fat mats. We can get more of those 3D tables or terrain pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a cool idea, especially with we know that the owner actually has a 3D printer for MDF. So if we do get around to, let's say it was just like, everybody in the store orders something, we get up to $400, $300. He prints out a shit ton of MDF for us to make more terrain. We hit another $500 in a few months. Like, okay, you guys can put it in a shelf. Like, and it's not that hard for them or us, whatever, to buy a $40 shelf from IKEA like we did last time. It's no big deal. But if we consistently do that, that would be so fucking cool. But do you think, just as a consumer, would you take, like we have the campaign. We want to take $20. We're going to take 5 of that and give it to mages, and we're going to put the rest in a price of support. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, definitely.
If we went ahead and took half of it, $10 of it just goes to mages, the other half is price support. Okay with that?
I mean, yeah. I personally I want to support the store.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't do that enough with. I don't make large purchases of that because the things I want are. There is a long list. I don't have the money. I don't have the money for it though. I'm trying to be very frugal where I need to be. You know, also I'm trying to prevent myself from purchasing other things before I do other hobby progress in itself. You know, and so I don't mind if like my entire purchase, like if my entire buy-in went to the store. I don't mind that personally. You know, like all of a sudden just like, or even like for thinking about like the UK, like how they do, because most of that stuff have like groups and stuff like that. They have a where it's a buy-in, it's a monthly subscription for the group.
Gaming clubs.
Like gaming clubs, yeah. So I personally if we're like, oh yeah, it's a $10 a month, you're part of the gaming club kind of deal. You know, it's like, oh, okay, cool. That's not too bad. We already spend that for like Netflix or something like that. Yeah. So what's an additional like $10 a month towards being part of this group? You know, being a monthly subscription or whatever like that. Are there some people who are kind of would be against that because all of a sudden like, hey, I don't play there enough to really show for anything? Like, sure, I totally get that. You can be part of the Facebook group, right? But if you want to partake in playing the store right? Here's a $10 monthly subscription. Maybe even like a little card that's like, hey, I'm a member or whatever, something like that. You know, so and then those are the people who are allowed to get the discounts for the 10% off or something like that. You know, because again, at that point, you're showing that you are loyal enough to just keep playing here and at least keep throwing at least $10. So you're talking about an additional $120 a year of your money towards this store. You know, that you're just like, I want to play here. It's like a rental fee at that point.
Yeah.
You know, and so if we have you know 10 people doing that, so all of a sudden that's $1,200 we're generating for the store. You know, so and at that point they're just like, you know what, it's not a lot of money, but it's something. And it's a lot more than like they were doing before, you know, like in a way. We're able to support the store, but not necessarily even with just purchases.
I agree. I think that might be the way to go, but then you have the question of, will people still, if they're paying $10, do they still want to come and participate in tournaments where they have to pay again, or do they pay again, or how does that work is the question. And that starts to snowball into, I would hate for people to feel like we're just grabbing at money. We're just grabbing at money just because we're money hungry. It's just like, I know people understand the way the hobby works and the way we're trying to make it happen for us in our particular store, and for anybody else out there that's listening. You're getting an earful of our little problems in our little store, which I'm sure growing groups that want to have these problems. But it's just, I want people to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare people away, and I want people to have a fucking good time every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that's my dream. So, that's what I would like to have.
I definitely well, I'm not saying like to you have to pay to play, like in the sense of like you can't play on Tuesdays if you don't pay your membership kind of deal. No, because that's going to definitely drive people away at the point. But if the people who want to have, oh, you want a discount? Are you a member? Right? Are you a member of the store? You know, like, do you have a store membership at this point where to show that you do make purchases here, that you are spending the money here, that you are spending time and all this stuff. You're rewarded with this discount. You're rewarded with like some of your money is going towards building this terrain and stuff like that. You know, the people who are doing it who are going for free, right? You get to live off a little bit of the fruits of other people, right? But at the same time, like for like the tournaments, like people who paid for the tournaments or paid for the membership, depending on the buy-in for that particular tournament. Like for instance, if it is the same as the monthly subscription, they really shouldn't have to pay, because again, they've already done their subscription kind of deal. They're already putting money towards the group. Versus somebody who hasn't, right, who is not doing part of the subscription, they want to try out a tournament. So like, okay, cool, just make them pay the $10, whatever.
Then, okay, let me give you a breakdown on these, because we're just literally spitballing ideas right now. And let's say, okay, we have a group of 15 people that play in a tournament. We have maybe, let's say this is a fucking rockin' deal and people sign up right away. We have 7 people part of this tournament that actually pay monthly. That means that there's only going to be like 9 people that are going to be participating and actually paying in maybe $10-15. Is that enough prize support? Because we've done prize support where we've had 15-16 people and all of them went in $15, and we got all of that prize support like right back into the group for awesome prizes. But I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I think because we are growing, I don't see prize support being such a major thing of like the thing that we should be pushing for. I think it should be really for like, can we develop our play space? Can we make sure that we have a say in where we play, right? It's really cool, you get something out of it, but it's not a guarantee you're going to be here next week to play with us, or you're moving or something like that all of a sudden, or somebody who's out of town who plays in it, whatever. And so all of a sudden that money that we put into that prize support just disappears, you know, kind of deal. Because that person's not there, they're not really doing anything with that money or whatever. Yeah. So I think initially right now it should be more focusing on building the store, our credibility with the store, and how can we do that? Can we put a little bit of that money off to the side for like a little prize? Sure, that'd be cool. That's cool, but I think really we need to understand that we need to really affirm we are a valuable part of that store, and you don't want to get rid of us mages. Like, please don't get rid of us, because we are trying to do what we can for you, right? And so we're not trying to just take money away from you by like, oh, give us a discount, oh, give us like money so we can purchase things through you or anything like that. No, we're trying to show like we are here to stay and we will continue supporting you. So I think that we need to solidify that more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because again, they see us every week showing up, going to the back room, and just walking out and picking up nothing. You know, so they're just like, yeah, those 40K guys are pretty cool. Whatever. I haven't bought anything. You know.
Yeah.
I need more space. I need more tables for my Magic. Stuff like that, or like.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. In fact, I definitely need to put that on the docket of things to do. I think we just need to definitely get just a group of maybe the admins, maybe people that are just generally interested, like you, Sherman, that just want to sit down with the owners and let's just do like a city council type meeting. Like, what do we got to do? This is what the group is prepared to do. Like, work with us, kind of a deal. Like, we wanna make this our permanent home. It has been our permanent home for over 2 years now. We've gone through, for those that you are unaware, we've gone through the process of Mage's Sanctum actually closing their doors for a short while because they went out of business. And thank goodness, somebody actually bought them, and we were totally set. They opened their doors and reopened, and it was under new management. It was like nothing ever. Well, things definitely changed, but it was a very different place, but it was still the same place that we could all show up and play 40K, and that scared that scared the shit out of me, dude. I remember showing up and seeing the front door just like, we're closed, we might not open, we're closed permanently, we don't know.
And then I was scrambling trying to find that new play space for that solid 2 months it was like, trying to figure out between Tribe or Mothership Games and all that other stuff. You know,
oh my god,
that was a little bit scary time for the group as trying to like play.
Do you remember there was another sad story. We were actually looking into Whose Turn Is It Anyway?
Mm-hmm.
That closed this year, man.
Oh, did they? Oh,
yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they closed down. They're in prime real estate, but they were the nicest fucking guys you could have ever met, dude. Yeah. And they're right there. They were right there on like Lamar and where Manchac meet up. Mm-hmm. And it's, dude, they closed their doors probably a good maybe 6 months ago now or more.
I did not know.
Yeah, dude, it's sad.
I mean, the problem with that store that was like where it was on the map, it was not that great. You know, like parking space is not that great. The store space is not the largest, you know, so trying to support all these kind of hobbies going on, it's not gonna really happen in that store, you know, just because it was just too small and it was just too, you know, you're spending like a solid 2 minutes just trying to turn into the parking lot because traffic's so heavy on Lamar right there. And so like that's hard to like try to support that particular store. It was really like, I went there a couple times, but every time I went I was like, man, where is it? Oh crap, I drove by it, and then because it's so small, and you're like, oh man, so is there any parking space even back here? Oh, I barely made that one. Do I like open your door? You're like, oh, it's gotta squeeze on out of here. You know, it's like Tribe's a little bit bigger. You know, it has a lot bigger parking space and all that stuff.
Tribe's got their shit down.
Yeah, but they're also not really supporting 40K because like they don't have to. Luckily, Games Workshop's just down the street with their 2 tables, which so. Yeah, but yeah, I don't want Mages to be, you know, another like Whose Turn, as you just now told me. Like that's really sad. You know, I don't want that to happen. You know, so how can I help? I don't have a lot of money to do so. So what's a minor thing I could do to help out in that way? I would like the whole membership idea. It's just like that's a way for somebody to like somebody like me who can't make money on a regular to like really like in a way support the store. You know, it's just one of the ways that we could possibly connect with the store.
And you don't feel that like almost guilt. Like I don't know. You might be the only people that feel like that, but that guilt where you're just like, I'm gonna go ahead and snipe this shit off eBay really quick, and like could have got that at Mages. Or you make a huge trade or something where, I mean, you could have been buying brand new models, beautiful brand new models unpainted from Mages, and it probably would have been easier. Instead of trying to scrub the paint off of like this old Space Marine that is like 12 layers caked on. It's like, no, I probably should have just maybe saved up an extra month and just bought it. But I don't know. I really like your ideas that you're going with. I think with that, like a good campaign, or with the good contribution of like $10, we could definitely get something rolling, like a campaign, super easy. And really get some stuff nailed down and get Mages involved. How cool would it be to have them involved with the campaign to help maybe do some recordings or something, or I'm not sure, figure something out with them to help take part and help take almost ownership of our group as well.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I mean, a couple times they even offered to do live streaming of some battle reports on Twitch, stuff like that. Like that'd be kind of cool to for some people to see that kind of going on. Like okay, cool. Yeah. So the people who are part of our community who are not necessarily in the area, like Noah's going to Arkansas, Chuck is in Colorado now. Yeah. You know, so that for them they still feel like they're part of the group. Maybe we can just say, hey, during this campaign, would it be all right once in a while, like, oh, this key battle over here, can we have that live stream, like for this one game, like whatever, like that. Oh yeah, dude, so totally. Somebody can totally see, like, so even though people who are not like partaking in the campaign, they can actually see it and they see like some of the mechanics we have going on. They're like, you know what, that's a cool thing they're doing there, and they're like, and this cool story they got going on. You know, I'll try to partake in the next time. You know, like something like that. So they can actually just see it physically happening in front of them, like instead of just hearing hearsay kind of deal, because it's hard to get the story right from, you know, a third party like that. So actually physically seeing how we're implementing the game live, you know, would be kind of cool if we can ask Mages, like, hey, can we live stream a couple of these campaign games, like, so we're spending a little bit of money, like oh, or hey, maybe not, or even like, hey, we're gonna buy our spot for that Twitch stream. You're like, these two people are like, we'll pay $20 each, and like, we want you to live stream it, right? it's like we'll pay for the premium camera time.
Oh, dude, how cool would it be if we got like just like some t-shirt mics or something on top of like the live streaming? That way you can have a little bit of commentary with it. Oh yeah, like that would be so fucking cool. Yeah. But yeah, totally. I think that's but yeah, we're gonna leave. All right, what were we thinking?
Well, I was saying, like, especially with that whole, like, that mic idea, I didn't even think about that. But, like, so for you as these two players, you know, always because you're doing this, you know, because it is a campaign and all this stuff, so you can talk about what you see in your mind of what's going down the table. You're like, all right, my general's pushing forward on this center front here, thinking he's able to do this thing and whatever, and like you say a little bit, right, and then maybe even the words you're saying, you're like, and you're like, oh, you're purposely putting out or like false information so the other person hears it, and like, well, and they do something, they try to counter, like, dude, you fell for my trap, it's a trap, it's a trap, you know. So it'd be kind of great to hear, like, so like, you're actually like, so you have these players who are getting some screen time, but they're also talking about the story that they're seeing in their minds between the two of them and how they're pushing stuff on the table. Kind of stuff. That'd be really cool.
That would be fantastic. I'm really excited to see where this group is going to go within this next year of 2017. We got a ton of stuff lined up. We are almost done. Well, we still got plenty of time for shit to happen, man. We still have all of winter to get through, man. We got so much shit. And especially with, I'm not even going to dive into it because we really don't have, we could take up another hour or so just talking about new releases that are going to be coming up by the end of the year. Yeah, I know. But we're definitely hoping to expand as much as possible and do some fucking cool shit. And I hope all of you take the time to participate in it, because we want you all, as many of you as possible, to participate.
So real quick, because we mentioned about the whole story writing aspect and all and some of the game design, real quick, for anybody out there, like, even if you have a stratagem idea, since we now have the mechanic, just we think of some stratagems, and like, so we can like throw it at the group. Hey, I have this stratagem idea, like, and so for this particular faction, or for like a generic, how much command points do you think it's worth, and all this stuff. So like, even that alone, it just adds so much flavor to the game right now. So you don't necessarily have to think about like, army specific rules or model specific rules. If you just think of just a stratagem that you can every once in a while enact, like once per game, you spend like I have a stratagem for my Space Marine chapter I thought about. It's like once per or I can do this throughout the battle, right? I activate it one time at the beginning of my turn. I spend 4 command points. I get +1 cover save or a -1 hit bonus. But I had to spend 4 command points for an army-wide benefit. So, and being Space Marines, you're generally not going to be playing at the at the regiment level or anything like that. But even when you spend 4 command points, cool, you can do that 3 times. But do you do that because you only have 12 points to work with? So that's where I'm saying even I thought of that, but I haven't actually play tested or anything like that. But it was a cool stratagem idea I thought for my army. It's here's a army-wide rule. I have to spend 4 command points to do it though. And so it's just that, but it added that little bit of flavor for for my army. That's what I was thinking of. So again, if anybody's got ideas about story or campaign ideas or how army should be, or army design, but then also just the simple thing like a stratagem, just think of that and please put it out there on the group to try to talk about it.
Yeah, we might even start up a little an event page or just a special chat just to talk about this for people that are interested. That would be super cool. I would love to get all of you involved. But anyway, we're gonna leave on a high note. We're both super excited to get this started and rolling, and hopefully you guys will see it soon. And this is Spilt Fire signing off.